Good morning. Good morning, and welcome to this service of worship at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tucson. For those of you I haven't met, my name is Reverend Bethany Russell Lowe, and I have the great pleasure and honor of serving as minister of this congregation. We here are striving to be as varied and beautiful as the blooms of the Sonoran Desert. So whoever you are, whoever you've been, and whoever you are in the path to becoming, I invite you to bring your whole self here and now. Our requirement to wear masks in worship and concurrent religious education has recently lifted. There's our HVAC going. Saying hi. The HVAC is saying hi this morning. Our requirement to wear masks has lifted, but if you wish to wear a mask, you are welcome to, and we ask that you respect everyone's wishes to wear masks or not. If you are joining us for in-person activities, we do hope that you are as vaccinated as you can be. Can I get a little more sound to combat the HVAC? A little more volume on my mic. Thank you. AV team, can I get a little? There we are. Thank you. I extend a special welcome to any visitors this morning and invite you to fill out a guest information card. If you're joining us on YouTube, our administrator, Mary Weiss, will post that in the chat right now. If you're here in person, join us for a social hour. There will be a welcome center where you can fill out a yellow sheet of paper that will help us keep in touch with you. We will meet for a social hour after the service in Goddard Hall, which is out the doors behind you to your left. There will be coffee, iced tea, lemonade, and always some snacks, and of course, good company. Next week after worship, our congregational evaluation team will be leading a feedback gathering session, we'll call it. They're asking you to fill in the question, I wish someone would. And then we're going to read that out loud and see if anybody would like to do those things that other people wish would happen. So if you are someone who has some I wish someone woulds, or someone who is looking for their place here at UUCT or just looking to spend their time here in a different way, plan to stay after worship next week for less than an hour. It'll start at noon here with the congregational evaluation team. And today is our last Sunday with our beloved accompanist pianist, Hung Yu. We are so appreciative of the music that Hung Yu has brought to us this past year. Hung Yu recently graduated and is headed back to China to be with her family. Safe travels, Hung Yu. And our service this morning, just to give you a short introduction before we dive into it, was co-written by myself and Reverend Sharon Wiley, who's the minister at our congregation in Escondido, California, outside of San Diego. Sharon and I got this idea, as you hear later, at a retreat we were at. I'm a millennial. Sharon is a Gen Xer. I'm a parent. Sharon has chosen not to be. And we wrote this service together based on the experiences of what we hear from millennials and Gen Xers, parents and guardians who are in our congregations and also not coming to our congregations for one reason or another. But before we dive into that, please turn to a neighbor that you don't know very well yet. Ask them what their favorite color is and why that color speaks to them. Reverend Sharon Wiley wrote these words for a call to worship. This morning in Escondido, California, and this morning in Tucson, Arizona, our two congregations are connected more than usual, more connected than our ordinary, everyday interconnectedness. Our ministers have written and prepared this service together. This call to worship is the same in both congregations, the sermon and the hymns, the story and the prayer. As we come together into this time and this place, let us feel our connection to that time and that place. Let us open our hearts to those open hearts and know that the challenges we face are not ours alone. The hopes we hold are not ours alone. And our dreams for the future are not ours alone. Come, let us worship together.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Celeste Rogers, and I am your worship associate this morning. Will everyone please join me in our chalice lighting words by Reverend Audette Fulbright Folsom. This light we kindle is set in the lamp of our history. We inherit this free faith from the brave and gentle, fierce and outspoken hearts and minds that have come before us. Let us be worthy inheritors of this faith, and through our good works, pass it boldly to a new generation. If you have a chalice or candle at home, please light it now as we light our chalice here in Holland.
Please stay seated and learn this chant, this simple chant with me, and we'll run through it about 3 or 4 times once we get it going. I have several plants in the audience that know it, and they'll sing it, so hopefully it'll just arise naturally. We'll see. So, cherish this hour, then let it go, then let it go. This life is but a vapor. Blink and it's gone. Blink and it's gone. Cherish this hour. Cherish this hour. Then let it go. Then let it go. This life is but a vapor. Blink and it's gone. Blink and it's gone. Cherish this hour. Cherish this hour. Then let it go. Then let it go. This life is but a vapor. Blink and it's gone. Blink and it's gone. Cherish this hour. Cherish this hour. Then let it go. and it's gone.
Called Wanda's Roses by Pat Bryson. One morning in May, on the way home from school, Wanda noticed a bush growing in an empty lot. It was about 2 feet tall, and Wanda was surprised she hadn't noticed it before. But there it was, bare and thorny, and Wanda, who loved beautiful things, felt her heart beat faster. A rose bush, she said, my own rose bush. Now, the rose bush didn't really belong to Wanda, but since the empty lot didn't seem to belong to anyone, Wanda decided she would take care of it. All during school, she thought about her rose bush. She drew pictures of it in art. In library, she borrowed books about roses, and in science, she asked questions about how to grow it. After school, she rushed to the rose bush. It was still bare and thorny. Maybe it needs more sun, thought Wanda. So she began dragging the trash away from it. Now, Miss Turner, who was on her way from school, stopped to help her with the broken chair. "Cleaning up the neighborhood, Wanda?" she asked. "Oh, no, not cleaning. I'm helping my rose bush to get more sun so it will bloom." "Your rose bush?" said Miss Turner. "Where is your rose bush?" "Oh, there," she said, pointing to the bare, thorny bush. "Oh, Wanda, I'm not so sure. It's a rose bush." "Oh, sure it is," said Wanda. "Well, good luck with it, Wanda." And as she walked away, Miss Turner thought to herself, "If that's a rose bush, I'm the Queen of England." The next day, she rushed to a rose bush after school. Maybe it needs more air. So she began taking even more trash to the curb. "Once I get the trash out, there'll be plenty of good air." Mr. Claudel was on his way home and asked, "Cleaning up the neighborhood, Wanda?" "Not just cleaning. I'm getting rid of the trash so my rose bush will have more air." "A rose bush? Here?" So Wanda showed him the rose bush. "Well, I don't know much about gardening, but I don't think that's a rose bush." "Sure it is," said Wanda. "In a few weeks, this lot will be filled with the sweetest smelling flowers you ever saw." And she thanked Mr. Claudel for his help. "That's a rose bush," he thought to himself. "Well, then I'm the King of France." Every day after school, that week and the next, Wanda worked to clean up the lot. Miss Giamatti, who lived in the apartment next door, gave Wanda trash bags. "You've done a great job cleaning up," Miss Giovanni told her. "Oh, I'm not just cleaning, I'm getting rid of the trash for my rose bush." "Where's your rose bush?" said Miss Giamatti. So Wanda showed her. "Oh, Wanda, that's not a rose bush." "Oh, but it is. And in a few weeks, this lot will be filled with the most beautiful roses you've ever seen." "Don't worry, Miss Giamatti. I won't be disappointed." Miss Giamatti sighed. The next week, when the rose bush still wasn't blooming, Wanda went to the library. "I need some books about getting roses to bloom," she told Miss Jones, the librarian. "Oh, do you have a rose bush, Wanda?" "Yes, but it doesn't have any flowers yet." "I know it has enough sun and fresh air." "Does it have water?" asked Miss Jones. "Oh, of course. I will need water to make it bloom." So that afternoon, she rushed to the rose bush. And she looked at the dry ground and smiled. "Don't worry, little bush, I'll get you water." She went to the butcher shop across the street. "Mr. Sanchez, would you please give me some water for my rose bush?" "A rose bush? Is that what I see you taking care of?" "Oh, yes, but it can't bloom because it needs water." Mr. Sanchez gave her some water in a plastic bucket. "I really do hope it's a rose bush, Wanda. You'll see, in a few weeks, whole lot will be full of roses." As Wanda carried the water to her rose bush, Mr. Sanchez muttered, "In a few weeks, that thorn bush will still be a thorn bush." But every day Wanda ran to her rose bush, and every day it was still bare and thorny. Mr. Claudel checked on it his way home from work, Miss Turner on her way to the butcher shop, Miss Giamatti from her window, Miss Wanda from the library asked if there were any roses yet. And every day when Wanda went to the butcher shop for water, Mr. Sanchez would say, "Are there any roses yet?" And to each person, Wanda would just answer the same thing. "Just you wait. Pretty soon, whole lot will be filled with roses." One day in June, Wanda looked at the thorny bush and said, "Well, if my rose bush won't give me roses, I'll give roses to my rose bush." When she saw Mr. Turner and Mr. Claudel, Miss Giamatti, Miss Jones, and Miss Sanchez, she gave them an invitation that said, "Please come for tea and muffins in Wanda's Rose Garden Saturday morning at 9 o'clock." "Oh dear," said Miss Turner. "Is she still expecting roses?" "Oh no," said Mr. Claudel. "Oh my," said Miss Giamatti. "Oh darn," said Mr. Sanchez. "There must be something I can do." "Oh good," said Miss Jones, who'd only heard about the rose bush and hadn't seen it for herself. "I'll bring the muffins." The night before the party, everyone was busy, and in the morning, everyone was surprised to see Wanda's rose bush covered with roses, paper roses that Wanda had made herself and carefully tied to each thorny branch. But more surprising yet was everyone who came to the party had brought along a rose bush to plant near Wanda's, except Miss Jones, who brought the muffins. After they'd eaten the muffins and drank their tea, they all got busy planting rose bushes. Mr. Claudel and Mr. Turner dug the holes, Miss Giamatti held the bushes in place, while Wanda and Miss Jones filled in around the roots with soil, and Mr. Sanchez brought water from his shop. When the work was finished, Mr. Claudel said, "Wanda, this is going to be a rose garden fit for a king." "Or a queen," said Miss Turner. Wanda and the others smiled. And later that summer, the whole lot was filled with the biggest, most beautiful, sweetest smelling roses that anyone had ever seen, just as Wanda said it would be. The end.
Our earth is strong. It can hold our pain and our joy, our love and our anger. Our shared bowl, which we use for joys and concerns each week, is strong enough to hold the big rocks, our collective celebrations and mournings, and also the smaller stones that will be added to signify our individual joys and sorrows. Today, we celebrate all the amazing mothers, stepmothers, foster mothers, grandmothers, sisters, aunts, and mother figures who have loved and nurtured us. Happy Mother's Day to all those who have mothered your own children, other people's children, furry beasts, and each other. I'm remembering my own beautiful mother, whom I was blessed to have in my life for 54 years. Thank you for your endless love, care, support, encouragement, and sacrifice. We who live in the desert know that water is a life-sustaining and scarce resource. Let us remember those desert people who came first in this place. We honor the Hohokam, the Yavapai, the Tohono O'odham, the Yaqui, and other people who no longer exist as tribal entities here in Arizona. Let us remember those who are walking through our desert right now without access to water. We pour water from a plastic jug, similar to the ones used by those seeking to assure greater access to water in the desert, like our ministry partner, No More Deaths. If you have a joy or sorrow to share, I invite you to go to menti.com and put in the code 3317-7604. If you are here in person and cannot access the internet, you can go to Brian Moon and he can type in your joy or sorrow for you. If you are here in person, you are welcome to come up to the table and put a stone in the water to symbolize your joy or sorrow. The pebbles create ripples of hope. Our mentee responses today. I can relate to this one. Support for all the allergy sufferers. Only a few more weeks for the worst of it, I hope. Someone wrote, grateful my mother is still around. Experiencing a lot of fear from all the anti-trans rhetoric and bills in action around our country. Need to keep my community, my family safe. Thankful for UU Gender expansive support. Amen. Happy birthday, Mary Catherine. She made it to 62. Woo! I place these stones in the bowl for all the joys and sorrows that remain unspoken. Our words for centering today come from UU minister and parents, Reverend Sarah Goodman. She writes, Join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Find a comfortable place for your body. Breathe as deeply as you are able. Hold in your mind the image of all things, all beings coming from the same tree, roots stretched in limitless tangles of connection and sustenance, interconnected and interlaced in a web of living and dying that is so beautifully designed and most times invisible. Join me in breathing. Breathe in for our lives touched by ancestors known and unknown. Breathe out for living lives that will touch our descendants. Breathe in for folks held in loving arms as they were raised up. Breathe out for folks who had to make their own way too early in their lives. Breathe in for beloveds who we hold close in our hearts every day. Breathe out for beloveds we sometimes have trouble reaching out to. Breathe in for loving. Breathe out for losing. Breathe in for parents doing the best they can. Breathe out for the impossible decisions they've had to make. Breathe in for those living with addictions, mental illness, and grief. Breathe out for those living with and caring for folks living with addiction, mental illness, and grief. Breathe in for caregivers of all kinds who give them themselves to make other people's lives better, more whole. Breathe out to honor this holy work. Let us take a moment of silence together.
Sink into this next song with me, please. I'm going to sing the top melody, first 4 lines of text, twice, and the bottom melody, second 3 lines of text, twice. And then I'm going to do that again. But there are people singing in the audience that will sing against me the second time, inviting you to sing whichever line speaks to you most in the moment. So, as you will. Loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Holy breath and holy name, will you ease, will this pain? Holy breath and holy name, will you ease this pain? Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world and your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world and your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Holy breath and holy name, will you ease this pain? Holy breath and holy name, will you ease this pain?
If you are proud of this church, become its advocate. If you are concerned for its future, share its message. If its values resonate deep within you, give it a measure of your devotion. This church cannot survive without your faith, your confidence, your enthusiasm, or your resources. The offering will now be generously given and most gratefully received. An offering will be collected now to support the life and work of our congregation. If you are joining us on live stream, you can send a check to the office, give online at uuctucson.org/donate, or text 833-361-5796. If you are here in person, the ushers will come around now with the offering baskets to collect your donations.
This past March, I attended a gathering of Unitarian Universalist ministers. It was a time for us to rest together, to worship together, and to learn from and with each other. During a collegial discussion about the futures of the church, the idea arose that the work for our congregations, not just the ones in this room, but the work of not the ones in that room, but the work of Unitarian Universalism as a whole, to ensure our survival is to make this transition of leadership from the baby boomers to the millennials. In the United States, baby boomers and millennials are two names for different generations. Baby boomers are people who are currently in their 60s to 80s. Millennials are in their late 20s to early 40s. You hear a gap in there, and that's a little bit of a joke in this sermon, because Gen Xers, who arise in the middle of that, quote unquote, right? I'm hearing some whistling. They'll always whistle when they're mentioned, right? But there's a joke that we always skip over them. But there's also another truth that I've heard from some Gen Xers, which is like, leave us out of this millennial baby boomer fight. Just leave us, let us be here, right? I'm hearing seeing some affirmation of that. But there's also a truth that Gen X is much, much smaller than the generations before and after it. According to the Pew Research, the population of Gen X in the United States is about 70% of the size of baby boomers. Gen X literally can't fill all of the positions and roles that baby boomers have filled because there aren't just enough of them. There are some big cultural differences between baby boomers and millennials. We know this, right? Social media likes to exaggerate the so-called fights, quote unquote, between baby boomers and millennials. But these exaggerated fights also point to how much the world has changed in just a couple of generations. The worlds that millennials came of age in included the internet, email, cell phones, along with the harsh realities of climate crisis, economic volatility, the terrorist attacks of 9/11. Their lives and how they see the world are very different from the ones of the generations that preceded them. For us, to transition the leadership of our congregations to Gen X and millennial age people, the first and foremost, we need to actually have more millennial age and Gen X people in our congregations. We don't have data about the ages of people in our pews, but we know that across congregations, not just in this one, not just in Escondido, there are many fewer millennials and Gen Xers than older generations. If congregations like ours are to survive and thrive, we need to do much, much more to reach and serve people of millennial, Gen X, and Gen Z generations. At that collegial gathering in March, I made a connection with Reverend Sharon Wiley, the minister of the Chalice UU congregation in Escondido, California, outside San Diego. And we decided then that we wanted to write a sermon together about what we think UU congregations need to know about millennials, specifically millennial parents. But we are also including here Gen Xers and Gen X parents, and also people who are guardianing and grandparenting kids these days. Because all these people are a population that we could be better welcoming in our congregations. To repeat what I started with, Sharon is a Gen Xer. I'm a millennial. Sharon is not a parent. I am a parent. And we hope that together we have some good information to share. For this sermon, we also gathered some feedback from an online group of UU parents. So we have feedback beyond our two minds and quotes from that wider circle in this sermon. Sharon is going to read her contributions over video, and I will read my parts live. Here we go.
Millennials are different from older generations. Millennials grew up in a multiracial, multi-ethnic world. 39% of millennials are racial or ethnic minorities, compared to 18% of baby boomers. That's more than twice as many, and the generation following millennials is almost half racial or ethnic minorities. To these generations, arguing about statements like Black Lives Matter is archaic. For millennials, a multiracial community isn't an aspiration, it's who they are. One of our online parents noted, quote, "We will absolutely call you on it if you are trying to navigate white supremacy within the congregational system by avoiding talking about it."
Contrary to popular belief, millennials are seeking spirituality, and church isn't the only option. Casper ter Kuile, a researcher out of Harvard University, explains this well. He says, we aren't young people who hate religion. It's a growing group and feel like they have been left behind by religious institutions. Ter Kuile points to the places where millennials are creating spiritual community. He mentions in specific a peer support group for grieving 20 and 30 and 40-somethings, CrossFit, Afro-Flow Yoga as 3 places where millennials are finding space for meaning, making, and community. There's a joke among some UU ministers that in order for church to be relevant to the lives of millennials, we have to be better than brunch. Because brunch is an option, and brunch is really good. And speaking of brunch, millennials are hungry for the promise of Unitarian Universalism. Millennials are hungry for a community that lives out the values of inclusion, equity, and justice. We are hungry for space to explore our own beliefs, to learn about different meaning-making structures, and to integrate anti-racist and anti-oppressive values into our spirituality. These are values that are held within our principles. How can we better live up to these promises?
Multi-platform is mandatory, not optional. The world has changed. Millennials have always had more comfort with technology than those of us who grew up before the internet existed. But the pandemic has demonstrated that the rest of us are able to learn these technologies when we need to. No more pretending that it's too complicated or we can't figure it out. This is particularly important to parents. As one online parent noted, remote participation options for things like committees might allow for my participation when otherwise I just cannot manage one more thing I have to drive to.
And I'll add here that I think we have done some great work to continue being multi-platform and even keep a lot of our meetings on Zoom, which is allowing more and more parents here to participate. Something we're doing well and we can keep being better at. On a sadder note, climate change is deeply impacting our parenting. If we decide to have children, we meaning millennials, we are agreeing to live alongside the fact that we might be able to leave a world for them to live comfortably in. We are raising them to be prepared for that world. Many of us, I could count 10 friends off the top of my head, are choosing not to have children because we cannot ensure that the earth will be inhabitable in their lifetime. We want church to be a place where we can explore the existential questions that arise from this truth. How do we raise healers, restorers, communicators? How do we raise kids that become adults who are part of the solution and not the problem? We are not only seeking your advice, we are seeking your companionship because we know you have or had these questions too. When you were raising children or nibblings or others during the Cold War or Vietnam or another existential crisis, how did you grapple with the fact that the future was so uncertain? How are you feeling about your own part in contribution to bringing about climate chaos? Come alongside us and explore these questions. Another sad note, a different emotion though, is that childcare is really expensive. In Pima County, Arizona, it costs a median of $12,500 a year for full-time childcare for an infant, and $9,700 for full-time preschool for a toddler or a little bit older kid. Those figures are between 13.7% and 17.6% of the median income in our county. Many people I know are paying more for childcare than they do for rent or a mortgage. Since 1990, the Bureau of Labor Statistics says that the child care costs have risen 214%, while the average wages have only risen 143%. Child care costs have gone up 40% alone since 2020, when the pandemic forced many teachers to leave the profession. Here's where the title of the sermon comes from. It's not about the lattes or the avocado toast. The cost of housing and childcare and just about everything has increased disproportionately to the increase in wages. Even those millennials and Gen Xers who considered themselves middle class are struggling to make ends meet now, especially if they're raising kids. If they are pledging $25 a month or even $5 a month to our church, that might be a stretch. We know that when we ask our congregations to pay for childcare, Know that when we ask our congregations to pay for childcare, we ask knowing exactly how expensive childcare is.
Modern parents are raising their children during a mental health crisis. As hard as the pandemic was on all of us, among the hardest hit were families with young children, who were suddenly expected to manage and oversee their children's schooling on computers at home. The pandemic has had devastating impacts on learning and socialization. Anxiety and depression in children has escalated, along with suicidal ideation. This comes at a time when there are not enough healthcare providers to meet the demand. This means that parents are living with enormous challenges and stressors. Making time for church on Sunday mornings takes a substantial effort. It can be a challenge for parents to volunteer their time in some area of church life because there may be at-home emergencies that pop up, impacting a parent's ability to show up for a scheduled meeting or volunteer commitment.
We sometimes feel invisible in our congregations. We are already showing up. We're already here. Until I was nearly 30, nearly every time I walked into a new Unitarian Universalist congregation when they didn't know me, I was directed to the youth room when I was 30 for the teen gathering. Now that I come with a toddler in tow, I'm directed to the nursery. But usually before I'm even welcomed, even if I was a youth, and even if I was in search of the nursery, what I want when I walk into a UU church is to be seen, to be welcomed, to be asked, "What brought you here? What are you seeking?" When I'm directed somewhere other than the sanctuary, when I'm assumed to be a decade younger than I am, it doesn't make me feel welcome at all. So what if you assumed that we are already here? What if you started looking for us? If you started, you'd soon learn that we're likely to scope out your church before we bring our kids to it. If you want our kids, you have to welcome us first. We're not willing to bring our kids to yet another environment where they don't feel welcome. We test out your welcome and bring our kids when we have trust that they will be welcomed as they deserve to be. So look for us, approach us, introduce yourself, ask if we've met before, ask us what brought us here, ask what we liked about the service, offer to show us where the coffee and tea are. Those are the important things. Or give us a tour of the campus. Show us where the nursery is and show us where your favorite corner of our sacred space is. We are here for ourselves, not just our kids.
I'm not a millennial, but I did start attending a UU church when I was 32 years old. Congregants were so excited to welcome us young people that my husband and I joked about people jumping out of the bushes at us. Everyone wanted us to come to their committee meetings, but we just wanted to meet and get to know people, not join a committee. For years, older congregants assumed I was new at church, even though I had been a member for quite a while. It's strange to somehow feel hyper-visible, like everyone is watching you because you're in your 30s at church and that makes you young, but somehow also invisible, like never being treated like a real congregant.
Some millennials in our congregation are ready to take on leadership roles, and some of them are, because in our eyes, what we are doing and how we do it needs to change. The two things go together. Millennials are leaders, and things need to change. This can be a real struggle in church life because current church leaders are often looking for the next leaders who will step in and continue doing things the way they have always been done. But that's just not likely to happen. Innovation happens in every generational shift. I know this can feel like a tender subject in our congregation, to our congregants who want to step back from leadership roles, but feel that there is no one to take their place. If you can't pass it on, sometimes the work is to step back and let it go. Let your thing flounder. Leave it to the next generation to figure out what to do. But, as an addendum, millennials in our congregations are not going to run the religious education program. Previous generations may have sought religious community for their children, but millennials are coming for their own spiritual development. The world is a literal hot mess, and millennials need support and spiritual nourishment for facing the challenges of our times. If we want to attract and keep millennials in our congregations, we need to provide the support and programming that they are looking for, not expect and hope that they will provide their own programming for themselves and their families. And our last point is that our congregations need to recognize that children are congregants. This is an area where the online parents had the most comments. Here are a few of their comments. Feedback, I might say. Stop insisting that children be quiet, inside and outside. Let children be children. Children are casual and playful and joyful. Let church be their home. Isn't that what we want? This is my favorite one. Please connect the children as real people. They need more adults who care about them specifically. They all need more adult attention. Please, pretty please, listen to whatever their current passion is. YouTuber, Pokemon, dinosaurs, I don't care, because I have already listened to this approximately 36 hours a day for the last year, and please, I just want to drink my coffee. Some kids have invisible disabilities, some people do. And what you might think is bad behavior or a bad kid is just part of who and how they are in the world. And if you give us dirty looks because our kids are being kids, we won't be back. Sharon and I know that some of the information we've given here is a little complex. Welcome millennials and see them, but don't be too hyper-welcoming that it gets weird. Know that millennials are leaders who want things to change, but they are also exhausted and cannot provide their own programming. It is up to us, congregational leaders, to find the balance needed to genuinely welcome younger generations and follow and support their lead. But some of the needs that millennials and Gen Xers and parents have, as well as guardians of all generations, are not so different from our own needs. People of all generations want us to be more bold and visible in our justice work. People of all ages want to explore what shared leadership and collaboration look like. People of all stages want to challenge the way things have always been done. All types of people want to be recognized and celebrated for who they are. We all want genuine connection and to relate to people based on both similar and different interests. Some people are just shorter and under the age of 18. Many people benefit when we use and improve our capacity for multi-platform church. When we make meetings virtual or hybrid, in person and virtual, people of all ages can benefit. Some of us can hear better. Others of us can see better. Some of us can get to the meeting more easily. Some of us can attend from wherever we are, the soccer game or the trip across the country. Everyone can benefit from the use of the mute button. Making space for younger generations to take on leadership in our congregations, to welcome them into our communities, makes more space for people of all ages and stages to thrive. With the religious landscape in our time of upheaval that began even before the pandemic, there are predictions that at least 2/3 of all religious communities, including UU congregations, will close in the next 10 years. If we are to survive this grim prediction, we need to continue to create the conditions for people of all ages to thrive in our communities. UU congregations can avoid or at least delay this decline if we can shift to being places where people of all ages feel welcome, where people of all ages can take new leadership. Sharon's note here, which I love, is that Gen Xers are playing a crucial role in guiding the transition to their and millennial leadership. Gen Xers have been called chameleons, bridge builders, and translators between millennials and baby boomers. Their leadership in our congregations is crucial to pave the way. Remember that Unitarian Universalism has much to offer in this era when disconnection, loneliness, and feelings of powerlessness abound. The world needs us more than ever, and it's up to us to rise to these demands. I'm going to lead us in our next song. So if you would rise in body or spirit, the words will be up on the screen. I invite you to sing with me as you hear the tune, or sing whatever tune comes to your heart. Let the life I lead speak for me. Let the life I lead speak for me. When I come to the end of the road and I lay down my heavy load, let the life I lead speak for me. Sound great, sound louder. Let the work I do speak for me. Next slide, please. Let the work I do speak for me. When I do all that I can, my friends don't understand. Let the work I do speak for me. Let the songs I sing speak for me. Let the songs I sing speak for me. When I lift my voice and sing, and it changes everything. Let the songs I sing speak for me. Let the love I share speak for me. Let the love I share speak for me. When I open up my heart and make a brand new start. Let the love I share speak for me. Let the friends I keep speak for me. Let the friends I keep speak for me. When I promise to go wide and let everyone inside. Let the friends I keep speak for me.
Will you please join me in saying our words of chalice extinguishing from Reverend Carl Seberg? Through our temporary lives, the great currents of history run. Let us keep the channels open and free, so not to obstruct purposes greater than our own. Let us keep our minds set upon the high goals that bind us into one sharing fellowship of loving hearts.